In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look at major storms happening around the nation, a brutal cooldown that's going to bring areas from 70s and 60s down to 30s, 40s, and maybe lower 50s for most areas. It's going to be a 20, 30, or 40 degree temperature change for most folks, so it is going to be absolutely brutal. We've been calling for this at this specific date basically for weeks now, and we're going to see this verify. I've gotten so many comments, and I'm going to address a couple of those today. One is that we only use the GFS model, we're not showing both models, and I think that the general consensus in the comments that I get a lot is that I'm only showing the GFS model because the European model doesn't agree or something. We're going to be breaking down the European model as well today, so both, as you guys have requested, just to show you guys that the European model has folded to the GFS model and basically started showing the same thing. The reason I shifted to the GFS model for this time period, because I do go back and forth every once in a while, is because the GFS model has been outperforming the European model for the summertime and into the fall time, and I felt like it was time to finally go ahead and switch. And in so many scenarios, such as, hurricanes that we've seen this year, where we've seen the GFS nail it and the European model completely bust those forecasts. We've seen temperature patterns, also the GFS model be correct and the European model be off the mark, and even with other typical storms. So that is the reason why. And just like those scenarios, we've seen the European model, after days of the GFS model showing this cold pattern, finally basically fold to what the GFS model has been calling for and show the same thing now last minute. And I don't want to show you guys a model that's wrong until the last minute. I want to show you guys the one that is performing the best. I hope that should be obvious. Another one that I get is that the National Weather Service is not calling for this cooldown, and I'm the only one and professionals aren't. So we're going to be breaking down the National Weather Service's temperature forecast, where they show temperatures going from the upper 50s, 60s, and even 70s down into the 30s, 40s, and lower 50s. So that, again, 15, 20, 30 degree temperature change on their graphical weather forecast on their website. So we're going to be addressing the comments and going through our normal stuff and adding the European model today. It's a very exciting one. So as we take a look at this evening, I know that was a mouthful, we see that the kind of Tuesday evening time frame today, or Monday evening better yet, time frame that we're watching this video and making this video during this time, we see a major low here across Nebraska, a bit of a cold front underneath, warm front up above. So this is kind of continuing the pattern that we've been in, with warmer air trending into the east, with the colder air really being locked up out west. And this is what we expect to change in a big way. We see snowfall throughout the Cascades, the Rockies here, especially the northern Rockies. And I think even along this cold front, we could see severe weather, thunderstorms happening for the day today. Very, very typical stuff in a low like this. This isn't a very strong low for this time of year, though. We see by tomorrow afternoon on Tuesday, this is about 4 p.m. Eastern, we see this low really just tracks almost directly northward here towards northern Minnesota. And what we begin to see happening, we don't really see a high precipitation cold front by any means. We see probably a dry cold front somewhere in here. This cold air really wants to begin to spread eastward around this point. It's pouring in behind this low. We see that the precipitation that was the cold front has kind of outpaced the actual area of frontal boundary, something like this. And we do see this happen sometimes, by the way. So a huge gap in between the precipitation and the actual location of the cold front here is what's taking place. And we actually see snowfall beginning for the northern plains here and southern plains of Canada behind this low. So a very impactful one. We see showers and thunderstorms in this area within this warm air mass. Your jet stream is doing something along these lines. So again, warm in the east is spreading. It's not going to last too long here, though. And then we see the cold air pouring into the central states by this point. And it is pretty severe cold. I'm not going to downplay it. We see the warm here across the southwest kind of spreading northward, and this is just going to funnel it into the east like we've been talking about. So let's move towards Wednesday. This is kind of a transitionary date for this cooldown, and we see it really pouring into the Midwest, Ohio Valley, areas like that, as this warm bubble continues to grow for the West. And this is going to act as a little bit of a flatter positive PNA, and it's really going to push this cold air into the east. Currently, along the eastern seaboard, we still have warmth by this point, as your cold front is somewhere in here, but it will be on the way for Wednesday evening, kind of Thursday time frame. We see snowfall again for the northern Sierra Nevadas, the Cascades, the Northern Rockies there, and some snow showers lingering for the Northern Plains and Upper Midwest. As we keep going towards Thursday on the 21st, we get really deep cold air here in the east. We see a stronger low over Michigan, snowfall throughout a lot of the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, mostly showers, I should say. It's not like a heavy snowfall event, but we do see snow showers flying in these colder areas, and this is at 4 p.m. on Thursday. So these areas that have been warmer, 60s, like I said, upper 50s, are now obviously below freezing as they're seeing snowfall happening. So very, very crazy stuff. We see also mountainous snowfall here for New England as we have a secondary low near Long Island that's kind of acting as a nor'easter. Let's keep going towards Friday, and we see that cold continue for the east, especially the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, where we have a low overhead Pennsylvania, snowfall for the Appalachian Mountain Range and even areas east of it there in Pennsylvania and New York as well, near the Catskills especially. And continued cold, and the reason the cold has continued is because we continue to have this warm bubble, this dome over the west that is just going to keep sending this cold directly into the east, and this is what we've been calling for if you guys have been watching the videos. Saturday we see it lift off a little bit, but we see that the jet stream, the kind of separation is somewhere in here. I mean, we really see this descending pattern overall. Something like this is what we're seeing. So we are seeing colder temperatures in the east, and when we compare it to this point, it's obviously a stark difference. I mean, even though we've kind of flattened off that trough, we see that the separation between the red and blue is here in the beginning of the model, here for Monday today. As we move towards after the trough, look at the difference of where it's located for the high temperatures on Saturday. A not even really particularly cold day, we see that it is hundreds of miles further south. So even when we're not in these major cooldowns, we're kind of turning the page, as I've mentioned before, into a more winter-like pattern where the kind of flatter jet stream is just much further south with that cold air than we have been seeing. So this is going to bring us towards more normal temperatures when we're in between these major cooldowns, as opposed to the far above normal temperatures we've been seeing. Also by Saturday, we see a lot of mountainous snowfall out west, Cascades, Sierra Nevada, Rockies, kind of just your typical stuff that we've been seeing out there. Sunday, we're a little flatter with it, but again, hundreds of miles further south with this flatter jet stream than we have been. So everywhere is seeing colder temperatures than they have been seeing recently, even by this flatter jet stream point. We see snowfall for the Northern Rockies, Northern Plains, and some of the upper Midwest as well. Some snowfall showers across the Northeast for Sunday on the 24th. Monday on the 25th, we begin to look at potentially another trough moving into the east. We have a Great Lakes snowstorm occurring with some snow for Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York here. Also areas like Toronto there in Canada. Again, a little bit of a warm dome here and a little bit of a trough here in the east. And we should see this get more dramatic by Tuesday. Look at how that storm moves over into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, though. This is 1 a.m. on Tuesday, November 26th. We see northern Pennsylvania, southern New York, southern New England seeing some snowfall, and that eventually passes through. We get another very similar storm there, as you can see, again, upper Midwest, Great Lakes, into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And this gives way to a massively colder pattern, and this is a little bit more true to a positive PNA. It's not that flat look, it's actually a lot more upright and horizontal here, and this is allowing for this major cold air to just continue to pour into the east. This is by Friday the 29th. Here on this model, and we see sporadic snow showers located throughout this cooldown. Let's take a look at Saturday, and it's lowering even more over time. Look at that. We see brutal cold air by this point for areas across the Northern Plains, Upper Midwest, and Great Lakes. This could be massively cold if we see something like this occur. Again, even though we're a little bit flatter in the east at least, we're still hundreds of miles further south with that jet stream, so we are seeing much colder temperatures, and we even see a wintry storm trying to take place here across perhaps the Ohio Valley. The low is trying to form in there. Let's see what happens over the following hours. That was again Sunday, December 1st. Here's Monday, December 2nd, and we see some snowfall showers for the Mid-Atlantic. We get another one here though. Look at this. We get these kind of flatter storms moving across over and over and over again, and really we end off this model run with a trough in the east, ridge in the west look here, as we see again the dippage. Watch the dippage here. We see dipping on these areas. A lot of people have commented also, I guess, as I'm addressing them today, why are you showing the dippage even though there's red and trying to say there's cold? This is trying to mark the 32 degree line based on your 500 millibar geopotential height. I know that gets a little bit complex, but that's not saying it's warm or cold. That's just trying to mark the freezing line, which is a little bit hard to do. Just using the geopotential height, sometimes it's wrong. For instance, we have snowfall there in New Mexico, and you're not in the blue one, so they are below freezing at elevation. It's a little bit more accurate here in the east in this representation, but it's not perfect. So that doesn't mean that it's warmer than average here. What it means is that it's not 32 degrees during 7 a.m. on December 4th in Florida and Georgia and Mississippi, which should be obvious, or Alabama and Mississippi should be obvious. So this isn't trying to compare to normal. It's just trying to show you the 32 degree mark. Now, as we take a look here at the European model, we're going to see some similar stuff. We see this massive cooldown move in. Look, this European model agrees. We have this Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Great Lakes snowfall happening for the day on Thursday, November 21st. So this is a very real threat for these areas. As we keep going, Friday here, we get some of that for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, especially in mountainous locations. That trough does lift off a little bit like we've seen on the other models, but we get more colder air moving in. I will say we have a little bit more of a southeast ridge staying stubborn on this particular model. But again, we still deal with this jet stream hundreds of miles further south than what we see in the beginning of the model run here. Look at where the 32 degree mark is. It's up here, just like on the GFS model. And by the time we get past that trough, it's now all the way down here. So we're seeing a big difference even when we're not in troughs. I guess that's the bigger picture, because that's what could last weeks. Even when we're outside of these major troughs, we're still much colder than we have been, which I know for a lot of you that always are wanting it to be cold and snowy, it's good news. Again, this is a great example. Look at this 32 degree mark, approximate, by the way, not for sure, but Kansas, Missouri, Southern Illinois, Southern Indiana, Ohio. And this is in the morning of Tuesday the 3rd. This isn't the low temperatures. This is during the day. We're seeing snowfall throughout the Northeast and Great Lakes and some of the more central plains like Nebraska there and Iowa. So we're seeing some much colder signs ahead. Let's take a look at the GFS model's total precipitation. We see a lot, a continued, just huge amount for the west here, especially the Northwest, but also Northern California. Large amounts for the plains here, as we've kind of been seeing. And then the east, areas that really need it, are seeing a lot more here. So good news overall. When we look at the averages, we're not that far above average for most areas. Like, for instance, southeast and portions of the Mid-Atlantic and Ohio Valley are slightly below normal, but this is still much better than those rainless weeks that we had just a few weeks ago. This is still some precipitation. It's just not quite up to what should be happening, but it's going to be good for these areas that are receiving droughts. It's going to move us in the right direction still. Now, as we take a look at the total snowfall, what we see is very large amounts, obviously. For the Cascades here in Nevada, Rockies, we see in east of these areas dramatically less than yesterday's GFS model runs. As I mentioned, that was a little bit overblown. Obviously, we do still see quite decent amounts for areas like the Northern Plains, Upper Midwest, Great Lakes, maybe the Ohio Valley. I'm feeling pretty confident in this northern corridor here, as these areas tend to see this late fall snowfall, in my opinion. These areas here, a little bit more skeptical of. It's possible for the Central Plains and Ohio Valley and even some areas in the Mid-Atlantic, but it's a little bit more rare, so I'd take it with a grain of salt. Even southern New England here, this area kind of tends to struggle a little bit in the early season like this. It doesn't mean they always do, but that's just my perception of it. The mountainous areas, though, of the Appalachian Mountain Range through the Northeast here, like, areas in West Virginia, through Pennsylvania, the Catskills, the Adirondacks, the Green Mountains, the White Mountains, these areas, and even the Berkshires, really, of Massachusetts and Connecticut, tend to get snowfall when others don't. So those are areas I feel more confident in. Let's take a look at the temperature pattern. Again, we're warmer right now. 70 degrees here in Virginia today. But for Thursday on November 21st, we see that cold move in a big way. Major cool down there. Here's Friday. Here's Saturday. Sunday. Monday. Again, you're not seeing any of those reds around. It's either yellows, very light yellows, or light blues in between these big cool downs. We see more major cold for Tuesday the 26th, Wednesday the 27th there in the Northeast. And here comes another major cool down here for areas in the East for Friday into Saturday. But look at this, an even more major one for the northern plains, upper Midwest for the very first week of December. Just like the European model showed, we do get a little bit of a southeast ridge here on this particular model and for that early December time frame. And La Niñas are kind of known for this, so we're going to watch this closely. But areas outside of that little southeast region were frigid, I mean, for the beginning of December here. And that does actually look to move eastward here as we move towards the Wednesday, December 4th time frame. Probably even going to push this area out over time and make everything cold, basically, if this is correct, of course. Now, like I said, here is your National Weather Service temperature forecast for today. Mid to upper 60s here in the Ohio Valley, even lower 70s. Same story through the Mid-Atlantic here. 80s, mid-80s here for the deeper south. Let's see what happens Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Look at that. Look at that flip. They are absolutely calling for this exact same cooldown. This is still 7 p.m. This is still the evening time frame. And we see these areas that we're seeing mid-60s to 70s dealing with lower 40s, upper 30s, maybe very low 50s if you're in the far south. So we are seeing a massive flip. These areas that we're seeing mid 80s are seeing lower 70s to mid 60s for some of these. And these areas here in the 50s. Let's see what happens. Friday, same thing. Saturday, same thing. Sunday, same thing. Monday, maybe lifting off a little bit, still seeing low 50s, upper 50s in here. So we're still a good 10 degrees below what we had been seeing. So this is something that they are calling for. I don't know what their long-range like climate prediction center forecast is showing right now for beyond this point, but I can tell you that as of now, for this cooldown that we've been talking about for a long time, for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, they are absolutely calling for it in the same way that I've been calling for it for weeks. So I just wanted to address that, what you guys have been talking about. Now, if you're watching the video right now, you're probably like 20% of my viewers that even watch this video. You're going to see comments still. I don't know what to do about it because I always still get comments even about things that I address within the videos. You're still going to see comments like, I'll believe it when I see it, or, this is, baloney, basically. It's not going to happen. Nobody's calling for this, but I don't know what to say. Hopefully they get to see this. Hopefully, somebody can comment and be like, hey, watch the end of the video or something, because, I want people to be informed, of course. Anyway, be sure to subscribe. We do upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.